Okay, welcome everybody. It's Noel here from Well Coach Co UK, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Dr. Laurie Shemek, and we're going to be talking about why creating optimal health requires an optimal strategy. And Laurie is the ideal person to be talking about this because she's both an expert in both physical and in emotional health. So welcome to the call, Laurie.
Thank you, Noel. It's wonderful to be here with you. Thank you.
And
yes,
you're speaking
you
to...
in Spain and me in the States. How unfair is that?
Well, yeah, you're kind of close to the Mexican border, aren't you? It's not too far
That's
away,
true.
so it's a little bit...
that Latin influence.
But you're speaking today from Dallas, and it's another hot summer day in the hundreds. And
yes. Very hot. Yes, it is. Very hot here. So, drinking a lot of water over here.
Likewise.
Staying inside.
So where should we start today, Laurie? Should we start talking about what it really takes to have optimal health and what optimal health really means?
So optimal health, what does it really mean to have optimal health? What it really is essentially the culmination of healthy lifestyle choices. That's essentially what it is. It's your body functioning the way it's supposed to function. It's that energy, that vitality, that you get a long lifespan making these choices. You're free of disease, illness. You're free of symptoms, slower aging. It's much more than just the absence of disease, which a lot of people believe is the case. People think that they're optimally healthy if they're not ill. And when in fact, that's not the case. It's cumulative damage as time goes on.
And it goes beyond fitness too, doesn't it, Laurie? Because there's lots of fit people who aren't necessarily healthy.
That's a good point. That's a very good point, yes. And we have people who are skinny fat, if you will. And we have, most people, because our bodies are so great at repairing the damage done to it, especially when we're young, that we take our health for granted because of that. And the body's so great at it wants to create balance all the time. So you'll see, when, for example, if you eat sugar, you'll get a drop in blood sugar, but the body, of course, craves that balance, so it wants more sugar to bring you back up. Same thing with every part of our bodies. There's a gradual downward shift that most people are not aware of until the symptoms begin. The damage is too great.
And so the downward shift is pretty much not being aware of the choices that we have. You spoke earlier like a culmination of lifestyle choices.
Mm-hmm. It is.
You can live life two ways, can't you? You can either react what happens to you, or you can actually sort of be more aware, more mindful, and you can start creating what happens to you, pretty much.
Yes, absolutely. That's the best thing about our lives, is that we have choice. We absolutely have choice. And a lot of people feel that they're stuck with their genetics, if you will. They're stuck with the ill health that they have, when in fact that's the furthest thing from the truth, in most cases.
And there's this sort of myth, is there, or is it true? It's pretty much 70% genetics and 30% lifestyle.
That's right. Actually, it's 80-20.
It's the old 80-20 rule, is it?
Yeah. That's better, isn't it? Because that, and how freeing is that, to know that if we take that, we have that option, that choice, the choices we make literally create the kind of health that we're going to experience. Positive.
So is it 80% choice or 80% genetics?
80% choice.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. I actually thought it was the other way around.
Mm-mm.
And
no.
so genetics actually...
So we have 80%... We are a product of our environment, which means our genes are too, right? So our genes respond to how we feed them, if you will. So how we feed them is in how our environment plays out, the thoughts we think, the toxins we run into, the emotional balance we have. All of these environmental issues, if you will, affect the way our genes express. And if you think about, for example, if you ingest a Snickers bar or a Coke or a spinach salad, our bodies essentially start working with these foods, and they essentially become us. So yes, we do have a choice, and all of our health choices are directly related and expressed through our genes.
And for our cells, ultimately, isn't it? And so a great test for that is where you literally just take a little blood sample and then look under the microscope. And that's just incredibly revealing, isn't it? Once I think you've seen that, you start to understand how the body, you literally are what you eat.
Yes, isn't that amazing? That is amazing. I know when I was in college, the first time I ever isolated DNA was stunning to me. I don't know if you've ever had the experience of doing that, but it's amazing to see the strands of DNA, this circular coil, right in front of your eyes. It's just amazing. So, yeah, and
so what components of optimal health are there that you particularly focus on? Could we break it down into some core components? And you have your very own health attraction system too, don't you?
I do. I have, the 8 steps to optimal health, and they all include, what I'm talking about here. They also include, the types of foods to eat, which are very important in what creates optimal health. And, those are whole, colorful fruits, veggies, whole grains, complex carbohydrates as opposed to refined carbohydrates, adequate water, and, the list goes on. Portion control is vital, especially here in America.
Sure. Now, there's a lot of doctors out there, Laurie, lots of them, and, they're forever saying, some are saying complex carbs are good, it's one of the major food groups. Others are telling us, no, they're not good. Others are telling us they're not good for sedentary people, but obviously athletes need them. You can see how the general public would get very confused, because these are doctors, lots of training,
right,
and they're forever coming up with new discoveries. How does the layperson cope with all that information coming at them? Because I think a lot of people are really confused now. What is healthy eating? And if it is 90% plants, do they want to be leading that sort of lifestyle? So, for that one over.
Yeah. Now, too much carbohydrate, whether it's a whole or a complex carbohydrate, a whole grain, or a refined carbohydrate, is too much, okay? Because the body does, even though, let me just break down what the difference is for our listeners. A complex carbohydrate is one that is fibrous. It's a whole grain, and it breaks down slowly so that there isn't a rush of sugar into the system, okay, into our bodies. That rush of sugar, that glucose that is made, creates a rapid rise in blood sugar, then this precipitous drop. That rapid rise and drop is inflammation in the body. That comes from primarily refined carbohydrates very quickly, almost immediately. Where whole grains, complex carbohydrates, it's a slower process, okay, so that the blood sugar is balanced. Now, if you ingest too much of anything, it's not good. So I believe that too many carbohydrates, yes, can be detrimental to the health, but
and energy too, because we require calories just to digest them. And if you're, if you've ever eaten a high carbohydrate dinner, you're drowsy afterwards, right? Because the body's working hard to digest.
Right. Oh yeah.
As a former triathlete, I know that only too well.
And you also know about the importance, being an athlete, of taking in carbohydrates, correct?
And this is why I believe there's, one set of rules for sedentary people and another set of rules for athletes, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to replenish what you've just used up. It's
right. I agree with that completely. So, one of the things also we need to be on guard against is the intake of too much of anything. Now, vegetables, in my opinion, you cannot take in too many vegetables, depending on how they're prepared, right?
Sure.
But essentially, your refined carbohydrates need to go out of your life. Sugar is a prime example of a refined carbohydrate. White bread, white rice, donuts, desserts, processed foods, all of those things need to go.
I always tell people it's going to age you. It's not just that it's bad, it's going to age you fast.
Ages, and most people don't realize this, it's inflammation that I spoke of earlier. That rapid rise in blood sugar and then that precipitous drop is inflammation in the body. And inflammation creates a whole host of illnesses and disease and symptoms and faster aging. Like you said, I can go into the reason why it does that, if you like, or we can hold off for later, but it's very important for people to know that. That if you look at...
And I think this is your big sort of key message for you. The number one key to optimal health is avoiding inflammation. And it's another one of those out there at the moment. The jury's, there are people for, there's people against, because there's some people saying the body's very good at protecting itself against inflammation. That if you do over-exercise, it does protect itself with antioxidants that naturally arise within the body. But that said, us people living in big cities, leading the sort of lifestyles too, it's a huge problem.
It is, and inflammation is a problem. And I don't know if your listeners are aware of something. There's something called telomeres out there, and they're like the little caps on the end of, say, a shoelace that protects the actual lace from fraying. Well, eventually that cap, if you've seen shoelaces, gets worn out and roughed up, and you begin to see the fraying of that lace because the cap is no longer...
That's a really great metaphor. I like it.
Oh, thank you. And so that is exactly what's happening to the end strands of our DNA through inflammation. And if you look at people, now there's a great, I'm sure you've seen the stories of twins who they've lived different lives, but they have the same genetic material, right? So one twin ends up looking ancient, and the other twin ends up looking wonderful, healthy, vibrant. But the reason for that is because one twin chose unhealthy lifestyle choices. She, if it's a female, shortened her telomeres. And telomeres, like I said, protect the end strands of our DNA, so that, if they're not being protected, if the chromosome isn't being protected, every time the cell divides, they get shorter and shorter and shorter. Well, the telomere protects that, keeps it, maintains it, and you can actually grow them longer with healthy lifestyle choices. So you see the difference in the telomere length with the twins, for example. And that's a good example of lifestyle choices where you have the same genetic material with two human beings, but their lifestyle choices then create a completely different person, if you will, that you would never even recognize that they were twins or the same age.
Yeah, and I have to remind my own family this sometimes too, because they always say you look so well, and I joke, well, I have fit parents, because it is all down to lifestyle choices ultimately.
Yeah.
But obviously this is what I do.
My own. Yeah, it's true. Like healthy life. My grandmother. I have a picture of her when she was my age, and she looked matronly and older and grandmotherly. You would never know that, but she never took care of herself. Yeah. She smoked a lot, she drank a lot, and so, she was a prime example of somebody who shortened their telomeres, for sure. So.
Yeah, but it is only this generation that we're becoming more aware. So it's just this idea that our cells are constantly turning over. Well, what's the sort of turnover rate? I hear different things. Pretty much it's like once every 8 years a complete cell in the body, or is it faster?
I've heard that. Yes, 7 to 8 years is my take from what I've heard. Every 7 years. By
the time we get to 64, 72, they say it's a bit like duplicating a record, like a CD with your telomeres. Yes. It's not quite so perfect each time, and
exactly.
That's why and hence the earlier we start, the better. Because each mutation just gets progressively sort of worse And this is where
Right.
exercise and wellness is a lifestyle sort of endeavour. And that the
And you
earlier
can actually reverse. Yeah.
and of
You
course,
can actually.
the body's so wonderful that we can actually reverse a lot of
Yes.
damage as well.
I know it.
But,
Yes.
I don't tell people that one so
that-
much, Laurie. I like them to, look after themselves early and set themselves up for a good old age. Because, as you say,
Right.
some people think they're going to live forever. They don't take care of their bodies, and they only take action when they're actually really pretty far down the road.
That's exactly right. There are a couple types of inflammation. One is silent, and one is acute. And the inflammation that's acute is the one that really grabs your attention. The one that, it hurts. It's like an athletic injury, which I'm sure you've experienced in your life.
Sure.
A sunburn or a cold. Those things grab your attention, but silent inflammation, and remember this is related to the telomeres. Silent inflammation is it goes on 24/7, and you can't feel it necessarily. Usually, you cannot feel it. So those are two key pieces of information for people to know. And silent inflammation ends up being chronic inflammation, and ends up being the result ends up being heart disease or cancer or Alzheimer's disease, faster aging, as we spoke of. The list goes on. Osteoporosis, you name it, it's there. Inflammation is key in most every dis-ease, if you will, and illness and symptoms.
Yeah, and just accelerated aging, full stop. So how do we test for it as a lay person? How will we know? You mentioned two types, acute and silent.
Mm-hmm.
How could we go about, first of all, identifying that we do have inflammation?
Well, inflammation, you have it if you're overweight. And people who are overweight, their fat cells create molecules that literally slow down your metabolism. So there you go. If you're overweight, if you're obese, if you just feel tired, lack of water has a lot of symptoms, including fatigue, and that's creating inflammation in the body. But if any type of symptom you're feeling is inflammation in the body. But I have to say, inflammation is very important because our body needs it to heal. We do need inflammation to heal, such as I mentioned the head cold. Inflammation is created with a head cold, but without it, we wouldn't heal. And same with other situations. Now, go ahead.
Just as a thought, whilst listening to you, this whole sort of acid-alkali debate as to how sort of acidic the body should be. Obviously, the body's too acidic. That's a sign of inflammation. Are you a believer in the saliva tests and just seeing if your body is acidic or not?
You blanked out.
Yeah, I kind of...
I'm losing you.
Yeah, okay, let me repeat that. There's a big debate that's, for some time that our body can be either very acidic or very alkali. And you can actually take like a little saliva strip of paper,
Right. The little
put it on
blue
the tongue, and just see where you are. Mm-hmm. And that will tell you what side. And I heard Tony Robbins say it should be 7.36. I don't know how accurate that is. Right. Is that a useful test to do, even though it's just saliva? Or do you do full lab tests with the blood?
Yeah. Yes, I believe knowing your pH balance is important. And I believe that because we do, too much of anything can create an acidic body or too alkaline of a body. So it's important to, maintain that balance, I think. The more information we have, the more knowledge we have, the more, I guess, empowered we are to live a healthier life. So, there are some people that don't believe in it, but I believe it's a useful tool. Yes, I do. It's interesting because if you compare, for example, creating optimal health, if you compare healthy eating to that of, say, putting fuel into certain fuel into your car, the chances are that if it's a bad fuel, that your car or your engine is just going to not work well, or it's eventually going to die, right? And the same thing can be said for the way the lifestyle choices we make, the food we eat. You can look at food, for example, for one, as fuel. And the type of fuel that we use or that we put into our bodies is key in creating optimal health. We put in, I mentioned, say, a Coke or a Snickers bar. We put that in. It is not good. It's not good. A spinach salad, however, is good. It goes back to what are some of the foods that I mentioned earlier, Those are full of phytonutrients. Phyto, meaning plant, nutrients that are very protective, that help us just, live a vibrant, energetic, quality life. So,
and we've seen a whole movement now with the greens drinks, and I know lots of people
right.
who have blenders who put in all sorts of mixes and produce these amazing drinks.
Mm-hmm. Right, as long as there isn't too much juice in there.
And this is the difference, juice versus vegetables, isn't it? That
it is.
It's quite
Much
subtle. My understanding is if you're of a normal weight, juices aren't so bad, but obviously if you're overweight, then juices are just contributing to the problem.
Exactly. Actually, juices are inflammatory because if you look at a juice, think of a juice as just a step up from a Coca-Cola.
Right.
Think of that because of the vitamins, minerals, and enzymes, right, in the juice that are inherent in that. But if you were to look at how the body metabolizes juice, you will see it is processed in exactly the same way as a Coke.
Right.
So which is that that rapid rise in blood sugar, then that precipitous steep drop, and that again inflammation.
Excellent.
And sugar is insidious.
I will point out I always have like lemon inside water, and that's how I drink.
I have my water, so haha.
So I have no juices at all.
That was very refreshing too, Noel.
And it's very refreshing on a hot day, but.
Do you sure?
But okay, that's very interesting because I thought there are some people who could get away, but for you, juices are like Coke, like sugar. They're really big no-no. Interesting.
I spoke of skinny fat earlier. Same situation. There are skinny people eating the same types of foods that create obesity, but their metabolisms are different. So, they're not, sugar, like inflammation, to me, are one and the same in how they're processed in the body, because they are. So if you look at, for example, one Coke, it contains 15 teaspoons of sugar. Now, imagine sitting down and eating 15 teaspoons of granulated sugar in one sitting. And I like to use that, and I like to actually, when I'm speaking, you do a visual of that because it drives the message home about how much sugar we are ingesting. Here in America, the average American ingests 141 pounds of sugar. Now, I don't know what pounds equate to. I think 13 pounds is a stone. Is that correct?
1 pound is 2.2. Well, in fact, 2.2 pounds is 1 kilo.
Yeah, okay. So that's 141 pounds of sugar annually. That equates to almost 12 pounds of sugar a month. And that's a horrific statistic, and it needs to change.
And a huge strain on the body. And it doesn't actually conduct electricity, does it? Because I've seen these tests. They put the electrodes onto the sugar, and then they do the same with salt. And salt actually conducts, doesn't it?
Yes, that's right. I've seen that too. Very interesting.
And again, I see people adding sea salt to, proper organic sea salt to their food, purely for that acidic, alkaline sort of balance. because
Right.
I know you're going to come on to it, but essentially weight gain for you is just inflammation. It's a direct response to that. You
It
mentioned
is.
portion control. To some extent, it is how much we put in, how much we take out. But even beyond that, I think we're moving to a state where instead of saying obese people, we're going to have highly acidic people.
That's right. That's a very good point. Yeah. We are moving into right now a society that's never been more sedentary, and that has never been more addicted to salt, sugar, and fat. And sad to say, the wrong types of the wrong types of sugar and fat. Trans fats create poor health, and so does high fructose corn syrup. So the body, trans fats and high fructose corn syrup, just know that the body doesn't know how to process these non-foods. They're man-made, made by humans, and so they're void of any nutrients at all, and the body has trouble deciding what it needs to do with those. So it decides it'll make ill health, or symptoms, or faster aging, or inflammation. So, it's just...
Which essentially is all one and the same thing, yes?
It is. It all boils down to inflammation, really, But, now, having said that, there are steps and there are choices, if you will, you can take to create optimal health in your life. And part of that is, like we mentioned, in terms of losing weight, maintaining, being clear about portion control. We here call it portion distortion, and portion distortion is huge here, and I know it is in the UK as well. We're a convenience culture now. Yep. We tend to, we live stressful, busy, fast lives, so we don't take the time to, go home and cook a healthy meal where we control the fat, the sugar, and the salt, and more. So we end up,
It's any meal that we buy from the supermarket is essentially a problem meal, isn't it?
Right. That is very true. That is very true. Now, when you say meal, are you talking about prepared meals from the supermarket?
The pre-prepared meals from the supermarket that you either put in the oven or in the microwave, equally bad?
Yes. They are very bad. The only problem now, Healthy Choice is one of the best out there, I would say. Okay. These teach portion control. That's the only thing they're good for, is portion control.
Yeah.
The frozen foods,
They just make you aware of how many calories you're taking in, just to put it in the person's language.
Right. Restaurants serve up easily one meal, 2,000 calories. 2,000 calories. That's a lot of energy, okay? That's a lot. That's a day's worth plus for a lot of people in one meal. So that's... Go ahead.
Sorry, because the average woman needs how much would you say per day, just to put that into context?
About 16 to 1,800. I would say 1,800.
And the average man would need?
I would say 2,000.
2,000. So there you go. So 1,200 just in one sitting.
Yes, and it depends on the person's activity level, the amount of weight they're carrying, and all that. But an average, yes, yeah. So
are you a believer in frequent meals throughout the day? Because recently a lot of people are now against the 5 to 6 meals, small meals a day. They actually still prefer the 3 main meals that we get the majority of our nutrients through that. And that we don't snack at all. What side are you on that one, Laurie? What do you believe? Because I think it's this whole idea that it takes calories to digest calories.
I believe in 3 meals plus 2 snacks. And I believe it because, again, it goes to inflammation. When you stabilize the blood sugar, when you have proper meals, and I meaning proper in that they're nutrient dense, okay? meaning you're getting appropriate nutrients, etc. You're eating breakfast. Breakfast is huge in creating optimal health. You're getting a snack. You're getting lunch. You're getting dinner, and you're getting another snack in there. So you're stabilizing that blood sugar, and you're preventing inflammation. You're maintaining your telomeres. You're preventing the shortening of your telomeres, if you will. And so I think that's key.
And are we different? Because I mean, I like that. That suits me. 3 meals and 2 snacks, because my body needs that. I equally know other people who could fast, most of the day, and that wouldn't be a problem. If I go more than 4 or 5 hours, my glucose levels will just drop. My creativity just totally out the window. So I need to eat, little and often. Whereas, could others get away with 3 main meals?
Actually, not really. Their body gets used to it, but the problem is the inflammation is still there. If you think about breakfast, you've been, let's say 7 to 8 hours without food. Okay. Now I talk about that low blood sugar in creating inflammation in the body, and so you think about you've been without food for 7 or 8 hours, then you don't have it for another, say, 5 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that right there is low blood sugar. Even though you don't feel like you have it, you do. And so it's key for anybody who requires weight loss or optimal health to ensure that they have breakfast. There are many studies done out there, lots and lots and lots of studies done, showing that the people who eat breakfast are the fittest and lose weight and maintain that weight loss for life. So breakfast is key in that. And yes, and so with every meal, it is important that you get a healthy fat. Important that you add protein and that complex carb I was talking about. Say a complex carb, a good example would be a whole grain, such as whole wheat bread or brown rice, for example. Refined carb, once again, is, say, white bread. White bread is metabolized just like sugar. And by the way, white bread is actually gray before the food manufacturers bleach it white. So it's really not white.
Okay. And what are your views?
White rice is fine food.
And your views on alcohol? Because in small doses can be a good thing. In too much, obviously, you're overloading the liver. Can be a bad thing.
Right. Alcohol in moderation is just fine. Wine is very important. Lately, in terms of research, they're focusing in on an antioxidant, a phytochemical called resveratrol, and I'm sure you've heard of it. Resveratrol is key in reducing inflammation and maintaining your telomere length, and sometimes reversing disease and growing your telomeres. So resveratrol, there are a lot of studies showing it's very effective in creating optimal health as well. But in order to get... I like
you, Laurie. This is all that I want to hear, so this is great.
Yeah, so there they go, all the picks.
Yeah.
But,
because you're an expert too, as I said earlier, both emotional and physical health. We spoke a lot about physical, but nowadays people are overwhelmed, they're frustrated. Just one glass of wine, and bearing in mind that I live in Spain, they have it with the meal. It does calm people down. A lot of inflammation is also like emotional stress as much as physical stress, because ultimately to the body it's one and the same.
Right, it is. And it is what I was talking about earlier. If you have stress in your life, your body is responding to that stress. So, you've got the increase in cortisol that comes about with stress. So wine, yes, a drink in moderation is good. It is a stress reducer, and it's actually healthy for the body. So stress is creating a problem for people in terms of weight gain, in terms of ill health.
Okay, so let's talk about exercise next. Where does sort of exercise fit in?
Well,
Because again,
fitness
that's a
is key.
subject in itself, really, isn't it? But
Yes, it is. Fitness is key because, you know, we all want a, we all want to live quality life, and so if we have, you know, if we have a strong heart that doesn't have to work as hard, say, or we have, you know, strong legs that can take us easily through life, carry us easily through life, strong, powerful lungs. You know, those are key in creating a quality life. Exercise also stabilizes the blood sugar, like I was speaking of. Yes, and it goes back to the telomeres. People who are fit tend to experience less stress in their life.
Yes.
They respond better to stressful situations. They are more resilient than unfit people. So it's very key. Fitness is. It also physically it lowers your bad cholesterol.
Yes.
It raises your good cholesterol.
yes,
You know, and you know, another thing people don't realize is that strength training, as opposed to just aerobic training, is very important. A lot of times you'll go to the gym and you'll see everybody is on the cardio machine.
yeah,
You know, and as opposed to strength training, you'll see people strength training, but a lot of times people bypass that, especially women tend to do that. And the women are afraid that they're going to build up muscle when in fact they won't. They will never build up muscle like a man. But strength training is very key in optimal health in that, you know, we lose muscle mass as we age.
yes.
And a lot of people don't realize that. And it's very important to maintain it.
Because one of the key determinant, apparently, as to whether you're going to be independent or dependent in later life is actually leg strength. And so that's the one thing that certainly older people, because they can't even then get out of a chair. And once you can't get out of a chair, you're even less active, which is then just the downward spiral to out of here. So that's actually key, isn't it? And I think particularly too, I was going to talk about the breakdown cardio to strength training and even flexibility, that as we age, but it's important to explore various ways, isn't there? Because there's even studies that if you weight train first, then do the cardio, you burn more fat during the cardio session, and then whether or not you train for more than 15 minutes at any one time.
Right.
Because we can almost train ourselves to store body fat if we're doing all this excessive sort of cardio. And I've rescued so many people just from doing mindless cardio in the gyms, just by putting a better balance to their programs.
You're my hero. That is wonderful. Yes, that's wonderful, yeah. And because strength training sometimes is more important in terms of aging well, youthfully, than actually cardio. Even though cardio is highly important, don't get me wrong, but strength training is just as important, or even more so in some ways than cardio, because we lose a great deal. We lose, by the time we're 70 years old, we've lost 25% of our muscle mass, and that is average. Okay, and so that's a very important statistic as well. No. Which
contributes to weight gain then, doesn't it? Because for whatever you're taking in, it's going to be easier to store the body fat. That's key. I'm a bit of a cardio advocate, being a former triathlete. There's an awful lot of studies too, you know, in terms of...
I am too, being a former runner.
There you go. You know, in terms of the biggest problems we have, like diabetes 2 these days, etc., etc., there are just so many benefits to the cardio. I like to think that it's pretty much camps that some people say cardio is more beneficial, others say strength. I just say across the board you need both, and it's very important. And I've seen too many people go across to the strength side. They look great, but they're not functional. And by functional, I mean if they go for a run or a walk, or go up a flight of stairs.
They're huffing and puffing.
Yeah. And I've always believed that, you know, obviously the VO2 max, our maximum capacity, you want that as high as you can. You want the ability to use as much of it as you can, and you want to keep that high throughout life, because you've got greater reserves later in life, particularly if you start to get lung diseases, etc., etc. So
that's a
I
wonderful
kind of,
point.
but
Yes.
it's very difficult to put the finger on the button and to say that one is more than the other,
Yeah.
maybe.
It is. It is.
It's very
Yeah.
controversial.
Yeah. You want, I've seen older people that just do cardio, for example,
that is a problem.
and they
Yes.
still end up frail.
Yes.
So that's why it's key for people to avoid being frail, the wasting away of the muscle. You can avoid that. You can be strong. You can be healthy into your very, 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 very old age, as long as you're maintaining that muscle mass. And going back to what you said about weight loss, Noel, muscle is key in promoting weight loss because muscle burns fat even at rest, as you know. It's metabolically active, where fat just essentially just sits there. Muscle burns calories, and that's what we want, especially if we're trying to lose weight.
And it's this whole idea of the afterburn too, isn't it? Deconditioned people, they don't experience the afterburn, but once you've got your VO2, your physical fitness up to a certain level, and you've got a good degree of muscle mass, and you're pretty fit, in other words, and I'll just use that in lay people's terms, but then it's not so much the calories you burn during the exercise, it's the total 24 hours. It's the result of the exercise session and the afterburn afterwards that really makes a difference. And normally that takes
really
3
does.
to 6 months to get people up to that threshold.
It really does make a difference. If you think about somebody burning, say 250 calories, that's not very many calories, really.
So it's like a Snickers bar, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So if that's all you're burning and you're blaming it on the just that specific period of time you're working out, then it doesn't make any sense to see people dropping weight due to exercise, to cardio, for example. So yes, I completely agree. It's cumulative, and it increases that metabolic rate, that metabolism.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we should start to recap then, if we can, Laurie, because we're coming up to sort of time.
Sure.
Yeah. Essentially, optimal health is this idea that there's many factors to health.
Yes.
If you'd like to just perhaps summarise that.
Yes, it's it's optimal health is living a vibrant quality life that's free of disease, free of symptoms, like I mentioned, having a special type of energy that really just comes from being healthy. It's not from caffeine. It's not from sugar. It is true, vibrant energy, and you feel it. You'll know it when you feel it. Yeah.
Show up in a big way. And the number one key to optimal health is avoiding inflammation, full stop, in any form.
In any form. That means dropping sugar for one. So, and other refined carbohydrates. So drop the sugar.
And the juices.
And the juices, yes. I'm sorry.
That's actually not me, but I know some people who...
I know.
And so the biggest silent factor that contributes to weight loss, and this is kind of, we've always known this, but it's becoming more prevalent, more known, isn't it? That it really is inflammation, that it's not just calories in, calories out, that people
That's
are...
right. Yes, inflammation is key in weight loss. Reducing your inflammation is key in the way your genes express. And just remember that fat cells give off a molecule that then slows the metabolism. That reason, inflammation. So.
And the things people can do about it is to, as you say, watch the refined foods. Just a quick summary.
Simple carbohydrates. And focus on whole foods, focus on brightly colored fruits and vegetables, eliminate sugar completely, eliminate anything that increases inflammation in your life. So make sure your lifestyle choices are healthy ones, reduce your stress, get adequate sleep, increase your water intake. Water, we didn't get to that today, but is highly important. There's just a whole host of positive lifestyle choices you can make, and you do have choice. As Noel and I discussed here today, 80% of the way your genes are expressed is through your choices, your healthy choices.
Yeah.
Or not healthy.
exercise is also vitally important in the equation,
Yes,
and particularly the
it
emphasis
is.
on strength. And I also say cardio, but that's me.
Yes, and cardio. I agree with you completely. Yes,
But
yes.
again, it's this whole idea of balance, Laurie, and what balance is, isn't it? Because too much
Truly
cardio
is.
is also a bad thing. But, you know, as I say, if you've got like a periodized, all-round 12-month-a-year training program where you build a foundation, and if you're an athlete, you've got like a pre-season, a season, and a recovery period afterwards, it is possible to stay within balance, and that's actually a good thing to the body. The myths that come about cardio being very bad for you is that they take sedentary people who don't build that foundation, who go straight into intense exercise, or at least that's my take on it, because I know so many healthy triathletes who look amazing well into their 50s.
Oh, I agree. I agree. Yeah, it's, you know, and also the way you fuel your body, and you're putting back some antioxidants that you're losing with the extreme fitness.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's some factors involved, but yes, I agree completely. Yeah.
And so, briefly in at number 5, we said what constitutes a healthy, well-balanced diet in practice? Because we've kind of discussed that, but just to reinforce that, because that was...
just back to
I just think people are really, really confused because they listen to so many doctors, experts, fitness experts, and they're being told different things. Particularly in the UK, the detox diet, is very popular. If you've got a weight problem, we're going to put you on a detox. And I think, take an overweight person that's kind of stressed out in life and tell them no alcohol, no coffee, literally just to take out all of those things overnight, and then to turn around afterwards if they don't stick with it and say, well, that's your fault, you got no willpower.
Right. And in any endeavor, it's baby steps to create success in your life, right? So if you're addicted to sugar, which is easy, it's about, slowly weaning yourself off from say, sugar. So that kind of thing.
Yeah, sugar's huge, isn't it? That is the one determinant that, particularly in Spain, every time you get a coffee, they hand you the sugar as well, and they look in amazement when you turn it back.
Yeah, they do. I know. Yeah. Or the cream.
So, Laurie, you've got a company, DLS Healthworks. Where can people go who are interested in really discovering and experiencing optimal health? Not just, health, but optimal health as you described. Because we've had such limited time today, but I know, too, that, as I said, you're an expert in emotional health as much as physical. And so there is this whole journey, this process you can take people through. They're just going to discover a whole new way of living that's going to literally transform their entire world and everybody who knows them.
Thank you. Yes. You can find me at www.dlshealthworks.com, dlshealthworks.com. And I do, my program is such that, I address any emotional component that needs to be addressed to create and lower inflammation in the body, which then creates optimal health and weight loss. My specialty is weight loss, and my clients have been very successfve because they now have education. Knowledge is power. It really is. It's very empowering, as I've said.
And also, we never said, you're actually on television, aren't you, in Texas?
Yes, I am. I'm a health expert for the Good Morning Texas show. It's the #1 show here in Texas, the morning show, #1 morning show. So.
Brilliant. So, I always put the teacher on the spot to finish. What parting message would you like to leave with our listeners who have listened to the entire call, just to take them through the next baby step?
I would say, if you do one thing right now to reduce the sugar in your diet, because most people are addicted to sugar. Most people have it every day in their lives. And if you do that one thing, I guarantee you will see major changes. And you don't have to do it quickly. You can do it slowly, as Noel and I just discussed. So I would say that would be the key. And the other thing is that every goal can be achieved once the obstacle is removed. And always know that every obstacle can be removed, every one. So create a goal and go for it. And just do it.
That's brilliant. Just do it. That's brilliant, Laurie. It's been really good speaking to you. Thanks ever so much.
Very wonderful. Thank you, Noel. I appreciate it.
Thank you.